and he covers the Jets for ESPN. Rich Cimini is with us. Rich, how are you, sir?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time with us, and Dave and I, my co-host and I, were talking this morning, just going, look, from the outside, we're looking at the Jets, and it seems like they're in disarray. They fire the coach, they fire the GM, they hire the old GM to find the new GM, and just everything seems to be going wrong. Yet we look at the roster, and we're going, well, it's still Aaron Rodgers, and they still have Garrett Wilson, they still have Sauce Gardner, and they've got Breece Hall, and they got Devontae Adams and Quinn. I mean, there's a lot of talent on that roster, so. And nobody's taking this game lightly. When you watch this team and you look at the talent that exists, how do you explain what's happened?
Yeah, you see a lot of big names, a lot of recognizable names, but they're not a very cohesive team. They don't play good situational football. They don't have an iron jaw, and by that I mean when adversity hits, they usually go down with the first punch. So they're not a mentally tough team. They are talented. I mean, you nailed it. There is some individual talent, but they don't play well together. I've talked to opposing coaches and players on other teams, and that's the exact same thing they said. One player told me on another team, he goes, they got a great roster, but they just don't play for each other or with each other. So it's just a collection of players and not a real team.
Yeah, well, Rich, what about like when we think about who kind of is the leader? I guess we think Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, there's got to be some of these guys like Quinnen Williams or Sauce on defense that kind of set the tone. Who are the tone setters, or are there just none?
Well, clearly Rodgers is the most influential player in the locker room, probably the most influential player in the entire building. Next to the owner, and maybe that's even debatable, but there aren't really. I mean, C.J. Mosley has been the vocal leader for them, like the heart and soul of the defense, but he's been injured. He's coming off a neck injury. He's missed 4 games. I don't think he's going to play this week. Now, he did practice today fully, but I still think they may hold him out for another week. So they don't have a real bona fide leader on defense. Gardner is trying to become that. I think he's matured a lot, but he's not having a great year. He has regressed this year. So I think there is a leadership void on defense.
So is this a team that you feel like, all right, they're just playing it out? This is, there's really nothing to play for this season, or is there still a belief there? Is there still an urgency, or what's the I guess the mood or the motivation around the team right now?
Yeah, I don't sense, they didn't have urgency when they were in the race, so I don't know if they're going to have it when they're out of the race. I mean, technically they're still alive, but I think our ESPN analytics have them at a 0.7% chance of making the playoffs. They say all the right things. The coach, interim coach Jeff Ulbrich is a good guy. He's a very enthusiastic guy, and it's funny, he is a Pete Carroll disciple. And he reminds me so much of Pete. I know Pete from back in his days with the Jets, and, just a energetic, always looking at the bright side of things kind of coach. And that is Jeff Ulbrich to a T. Unfortunately, he was just thrown into a horrible situation without much chance to succeed, and it hasn't gone well. So, I think the Jets will put up a modest fight, but there is no sense of urgency, and I'd be surprised if they really make it a 4-quarter competitive game.
Hey, Rich, I was looking at some film, and obviously the game against the Colts. Michael Clemens really popped up, and I was like, yeah, you don't hear that much about him. Is there a guy who is the guy that is playing really well that's not named Aaron Rodgers or Breece Hall that is maybe like a heart and soul, or a guy that may be a little bit underrated?
Well, they do have a couple of those guys. He's not underrated, but a guy who's having a good year is Garrett Wilson. In spite of Rodgers' struggles this year, Garrett Wilson is having his best year. I should throw this kind of a newsy note into the conversation. Breece Hall's status for Sunday is up in the air right now. He did not practice today, and they are there's some optimism. I wouldn't say a lot of optimism. He got hurt in the Colts game, and I guess his knee started swelling up over the bye week, and he didn't practice today. They're saying they're hopeful that he plays, but I didn't even see him on the practice field today, even standing on the side, so that's usually not a good sign. And if he doesn't play, they would go with the rookie, Braylon Allen, who's pretty good, a different kind of back, but he's pretty good. Other unsung guys, DJ Reed, the former Seahawk, is having another strong year for them. He's been a solid player. He'll be a free agent. And, a couple of others here and there, but I would say not too many, that's for sure.
When you look at Aaron Rodgers and his struggles, is it, in your opinion, just watching him the eye test? Or are you looking at a guy you're just thinking, all right, he doesn't have it anymore? Or is it about who's around him, the play calling, the dysfunction? The head coach is gone, the GM's gone. Is it more about the dysfunction, or are you looking at a guy whose skills have just really diminished to the point we're seeing him, completing under 64% of his passes?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything you just mentioned. Clearly, his movement skills are diminished. Being 41, turns 41 on Monday, coming off the Achilles injury, I think it was kind of lunacy to expect him to be the same Rodgers who was winning MVPs with the Packers. So his mobility is diminished. I think that's affected his overall game. The play calling has been largely horrendous, throughout the year. They're already on their second play caller with Todd Downing. They get too pass happy. They abandon the run very quickly. They have no play action. The dysfunction around the team for sure has been a factor that's affected Rodgers, and everybody was stunned when they fired Saleh after 5 games. It seemed to be a very impulsive, knee-jerk move by the owner, which has obviously backfired because they're 1-5, 1-6 since that move. And so yeah, Rodgers is a victim of his own declining skills, but also he battled some injuries early in the year. He had a hamstring knee injuries that I no doubt affected his performance. Now today, it's interesting you mentioned this. They just put out the injury report. For the first time since week 5, he is not listed on the injury report. So I think he's healthy now, but he's been a victim of some pretty bad circumstances around him as well.
Well, Rich, I hate to ask you this, but predict the future. But, is this it for Aaron Rodgers? Or do you think I'm not sure what his contract situation is there, but, do you think this could be it for him? Is this the way he's going to go out? Or does he come off to you as one of those guys that's going to go and squeeze every last little bit of talent out of him no matter how old he is?
Yeah, that's a great question. We asked him that today, and he says he doesn't have to, for the record, he's saying he's undecided on next year. Now, he is under contract next year for $37.5 million, but none of it is guaranteed, so they could move on pretty easily from him, which I think they will, because it's a new regime coming in. It's going to be a new GM, a new coach, and Rodgers will be 41. And so I find it hard to believe that a new regime would want to hitch their wagon to him for a year, not to mention some serious salary cap ramifications down the road if they keep him another year. And so someone asked Rodgers today, about going out on a down note, and he says that's not a factor at all in his decision. He's happy with his career. And he should be. Look, the guy won 4 MVPs. He won a Super Bowl. He's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. But he claims that he doesn't need to go somewhere just to prove a point. If this is it, then he's happy, the way, it's gone for him.